Hi, I'm Chloe Canning. Welcome back for Season 2 on Lead with Courage. Illuminate Leadership acknowledges the traditional custodians of the land, which we would call this podcast the Yagara and Terrible People. We pay respect to the elders past, present, and emerging.
Welcome to Lead with Courage, the podcast that celebrates the bold and inspiring stories of leaders making a difference. We're your hosts, Andy and Cherie Canning, and together we'll dive into the minds of the trailblazers, the risk takers, and those who embrace life with a growth mindset. Today's guest is Stephanie White. I will never forget the first time I met Steph as she walked into our Illuminate office, and I was instantly drawn to her energy and her passion. Steph is a transformational business leader and growth accelerator with an entrepreneurial spirit like no other. In this conversation, she's going to share her 25 years of working in incredible businesses, from startups to Fortune 500 companies, and her own upbringing under her mum and dad's business, Terry White Pharmacy. This is an incredible conversation about taking chance encounters, giving your all, and having an incredible growth mindset.
Stephanie White, welcome to the Lead with Courage podcast.
Thank you.
From what we understand, this is your first podcast being a guest of, not your first listening to, but certainly being a guest of. And we're so excited to have you here through a somewhat serendipitous moment. I want to say almost, 6 or 7 months ago now, we were introduced to each other, and you've been a big part of, really our business and probably a mediator between Cherie and I from time to time as well over the last 7 or 8 months or so. And we're really grateful. So thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. It's really a delight. You guys are a delight. I love what you're doing. It's amazing. And I think one of the most amazing things about it is that it is courageous, sticking with the theme, but the authenticity that you bring. And I think that's what really sticks with people, because authenticity essentially is a feeling, right? And that saying that people remember how you made them feel, not what you said. And there's so much that you have to say with your training and your content, but you give them that and that capability, and then but the feeling really loads the learning. And I think that's really special. And I think that's really clear from the moment I met you, and I know other people do too. So congratulations.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I feel like you're meant to come here and we're meant to say the nice things. So thank you. Thank you. That's so lovely.
I wouldn't have come.
Oh, yeah, that's true. That's true. That's true. That's so true. As you may know, because you might have listened to an episode or two, we love to ask, what does Lead with Courage mean to you?
It's so funny because I have listened to a number of episodes and I love listening to them. It's a great sort of every week little charge. And I think my answer changes really regularly, because courage by its very nature, like if you're called to be courageous, you don't show up in one sort of version of courageous at any one time. It can be a number of different things. And so narrowing it down was really tricky. So then I just gave up. So, you're coming up with a pithy answer, right? So, but I think that ultimately it comes down to what my operating system is. And being courageous is showing up. It's showing up and playing full out no matter what, and just really sticking to that guardrail of how you operate. And where the courage comes in is you're not always walking into an environment where others are doing that. And you're also not always walking into an environment where you're feeling confident to show up or have the capabilities or the skills. And to do that regardless is, I've often felt those moments of, butterflies over the years or imposter syndrome or et cetera. But because that is so part of how I roll, I show up no matter what, and over my career, that's been in different countries, in different languages. It's been in very scary, auspicious boardrooms and brands. And, that's courageous too. This sort of little girl from Australia and showing up, there were some big moments there that just really helped me. And today, because of that sort of behavior, there's been a number of courageous moments around managing change and managing people's behavior, especially managing, really senior people's behavior. I think that we talk about managing up, But I think it takes even more courage to manage across, so laterally, because you're basically influencing without power,
Yes.
And
yes.
The courage to be able to speak up and have an opinion with your peers and take them on the journey can be, because they're sort of, often in teams, this sort of group thinkers comes in and people are jostling for X, Y, Z. But if you sort of go by that, I'm going to show up, I'm going to play full out, and I'm going to do the right thing right every time. That's where the courage can become bigger or louder than other times. And there's been, a couple of times in the last couple of years where, speaking up for, sort of really bad behavior in the workplace, when you have really tenured senior partners in businesses behaving badly, and particularly to women, and having the Me Too movement was hilarious, because I got a sort of a shorthand handle out of that, which was, just being able to look at a CEO and just gently say #Me Too as code for pull it in, because, women speaking up for women, that's what we need. And I mean, it's so funny. I've always been really young for my roles, and now I'm so not. I've totally aged into myself, and then I took that too far. Being, if not me, who, being able to speak up and being able to role model that for, whether they be the senior managers who report into me or the middle managers, and doing it in a way that's gracious and appropriate is also something that's really important. And I think that gets back to being courageous isn't just being bloody minded, because it sounds like you're out front and sort of going into the fray, as it were. But being courageous is also being thoughtful and being really considerate about how to get that message across so it's heard, and how to get that message across in the workplace where it is considerate and kind, even though it might not be a great message, but it's kind,
Yeah, because then when you're in the workplace, you still got to work with those people. So be able to get that message and to be able to speak up, but then show up the next day and still work together and build on a relationship.
Of course.
It's a delicate
it
balance.
Can be delicate, and it's why people don't speak up, or they don't really lean into, the courageous piece, because it's a bit scary, and for me, it's, I don't go to fear. I just go to, this is the right thing to do. And then there's a right way to do the right thing.
Yes.
So that was a very long answer.
It was a cracking answer.
Beautiful answer.
And I love that part at the end there. It's like that 2-part process, right? And kind of like the check, and then am I doing the right thing in the right way? And I love that. I'd not thought of it like that before, so thank you.
Yeah. And so what we'd love, I think, to talk about a little bit is maybe to share a little bit about your career and some of the, I'm going to say, in our blurb at the beginning of the podcast, we talk about, the trailblazers, the risk takers, and the growth, people living with the growth mindset. For me, I think you're a bit of all of the above. And when I heard your story and your career, some of the opportunities or the doors that opened, they were real risk-taking moves. Like there wasn't a lot of, that was really with your heart jumping in, which I love that about you so much. So I'd love if we can maybe hear a little bit about your career and also then the values that have shaped you, because I think when you're talking about doing the right thing in the right way, like you're such a values-led person, and maybe a little bit about where those values have come from. And it's maybe we start with the values and then the career and then what we'll get to where you are now. But yeah, that'd be great. So values.
Gosh, values. Actually, I'm going to start with where it all came from, because I always think I'm just such an obvious chip off the old blocks, as it were. So I grew up in a family of shopkeepers, and we grew up behind the shop. And the reason I mention that is, growing up in a family, there were 5 of us, so 4 brothers and me. It was awesome. It was hands-on. Mum and dad were working the shop. We had 5 kids. It's a lot of kids to raise. Both my parents were pharmacists, and they, were both working in the pharmacy. And
many people might know.
Many people might know them.
Your parents' name now.
Yeah.
Terry White Pharmacy, Terry and Rhonda White. Yeah.
Terry and Rhonda White. And I mention that because, you see the brand today, and it's very glossy and big, etc. but that, like any business, started with one store, one family working really, really hard to basically build a living. Neither of my parents came from wealth. And they had to make it work. They did pharmacy because back then it was I think they called it a sandwich course. So they went to work during the day and they earned a wage, and they did university at night. That's how they did it. And so anyway, what that gave my brothers and I, it immediately was, we were hands-on, and from like the moment you could see over a counter, it was ridiculous. And the operating system, the business operating system that I learned there, is exactly the same I use every single day, which is quite simply, we set out our stall, our offer, we open up our shutters, we serve our customers, and if we do it well enough, they come back. So today, I've got a big capability in customer experience design, sort of people and customer experience design, and operating systems and how to optimize and monetize businesses. It essentially all comes from that. So thanks, Mum and Dad. Huge opportunity there. And I think that's, growing up with a couple of risk takers and trailblazers and people with growth mindsets. I came by it honestly. But that did mean when I finished university that I didn't want to be someone's daughter, imagine. And I was quite mortified by this idea. And so I was lucky enough. I got an internship in Paris, which again is like, what the heck? I mean,
Amazing.
Really, I know. But really that came around from the brand owner said to me, if you're ever in Paris, I'll give you a job. And so I showed up. So, and I got a job. So that's how it works. So be careful when you say that.
People might come knocking.
This kid might turn up on your doorstep. And that kicked off a 25-year odyssey, basically, of being overseas. I probably took the, go and do my own thing on my own, sort of on my own kind of wherewithal, a little too far, but I just kept getting great jobs, and it was lots of fun. And during that odyssey, I met my husband, and we've got 3 beautiful children. And so from Paris, I then got I was working for a cosmetic company called Clarins, and then I got picked up by another big cosmetic company called Estee Lauder, who were headquartered in that region in London. And so I moved to London then, and it was at a time where Lauder was on a big acquisition trail, and I was young, and I bizarrely had a hell of a lot of experience for a 22-year-old, right? Because I'd been in business forever, and I always had, if I was working at the pharmacies, and I also had a job at McDonald's was the best experience from a team perspective and process perspective. That's where I cut my teeth on that idea. It was brilliant. And then, I worked at the Echo and, every job. So I was like this, I just like working, clearly that hasn't stopped. So when I, started going to these roles, I was quite young, but I was really sort of had a mature headset, and I got a lot of jobs that were considered innovative or new, which is great. And at that stage, the lot of companies were looking at rolling out into drugstores at that stage, or pharmacy. And I knew a fair bit about that. And oddly
what
enough,
a combo.
I know.
Yeah.
So rolled them out into Boots, and then launched their first licensed brand, which was Tommy Hilfiger, for that company, which was really interesting because it was like a black street rapper brand for a very conservative company. And so I got to do a lot of really fun jobs. And, from then I went into the media and marketing industry and worked for some a WPP organization. I ended up running that and becoming the managing director.
What's WPP?
Sorry. WPP was the largest communications network in the world at the time. It's since broken up. So they had big agencies like Ogilvy and Mather, J. Walter Thompson, etc. So, I just got a hell of a lot of opportunities, and that led me to New York. I got a call one day from a fellow who's the chairman of a French company, which is part of Unilever. And I went, okay, so that was that sort of, when you talk about walking in and taking risks, it's like, show up.
Yes.
It really is 80% of the challenge, as it were. I got an offer in London, and I showed up, And the same with New York, which I really didn't want to leave London at the time because all my friends were there. I'd basically done a lot of my growing up in London, and I didn't really want to go to New York. But, show up.
And well, New York is my favorite city in the world. So like, how could you say that? But maybe when you get to New York, it's a different story.
No, it's great. But like you also have all your mates, and I was already in a phenomenal city.
Yes, that's true.
Like, I mean,
that's very true.
And I was going back and forth to New York anyway with Lauder at the time. So it was nice. Anyway, it was a great opportunity. And, I eventually said yes. And, that led to the next story.
There was in there, I remember you telling me about being on an aeroplane and meeting a woman sitting across from you or sitting next to you.
Correct me if I'm wrong, this might have happened more than once.
Oh, yeah. Airplanes are amazing. And I'm not even one of those people that suddenly starts talking to my neighbor because I find that incredibly annoying, especially when you're flying for business. You're really knackered.
Yeah, you're like, I just need to put my headset on and not speak to anyone. But you had job offers from.
Yes, that's how I got the Lauder job. So, and I was like a baby. I don't even know how that happened actually. There was a connection, and then there was a follow-up, and I just we happened to meet. It was kind of one of those moments. And then that's happened again. It's really interesting. People, I don't know, maybe it's a vibe thing.
Oh, it's your energy. Because I remember you saying something like you got on that flight, you had a chat to this person, and they went, you need to work for me. You must come and work for me. And then you did in the end.
I did.
Yeah.
That was amazing. And the other story was I ended up working for Hachette, which was a big media, owned a lot of, at the time, magazine titles like FHM and British Elle and all that sort of thing, and sort of took them online. That was in the dawn of digital. I like saying the dawn of digital because it sounds good, right? And
trailblazer.
I know, right? Yeah. And I'm sort of going in the one-eyed, king of the blind, the one-eyed man is king, right? And I spent a fair bit of time in the States, and they were doing this thing called email. And so and then this friend of mine in the States had a thing called a website, and I checked that out. And so that's basically, honestly, but what I did know, and that's where my company name comes from, Yellow Donkey, because it became a really kind of in the local business law at the time, quite a famous project because it got the most incredible amount of investment because, I want to take all these what were considered magazines. Actually, they were brands with discrete followership, and they trying to help them understand that and building out brand platforms for all these titles because I wanted to create my favorite business model, as you know, is money coming from everywhere. And at that time, their revenue streams were limited to copy sales and advertising sales. And what were the alternative revenue streams because both were diminishing at the time because of the proliferation of media. And anyway, so I took them into a number of areas, but I took them online. And I my proposal with the Yellow Donkey Project, because back then everybody had project name when you went to board, and because it was top secret. And so they were giving them stupid names. So mine was called Yellow Donkey, and I got ridiculous investment, like 100 million pounds, I think it was, something like that. It was nuts over a period of time to take them online. The reason I got that backing was from the get-go, I had all the sites monetizing, which at the time was then it was a land grab. For me, I felt that that basically website or URLs were another shop front. You're going to open up your door and you're going to open up your shutter and customers are going to come in. And if you did it well enough, they'd come back. So it was that same sort of thing. Well, that was revolutionary thinking then, which was hysterical because then it was just all about content online. But we were a content company, so it just didn't make sense to me. And so anyway, that sort of kicked off my digital transformation career. And I've really spent from, the early 2000s to now transforming and future-proofing organizations, and whether it be digitally and or whether it be through their operating models and people and processes, but really about optimizing and monetizing organizations. Same theme, really.
Awesome.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
I would think my story is a lot of words, but it's kind of busy. When you're doing transformation work, there's a lot to do,
There is a lot to do. And I think you have a really beautiful process to help people get there. I know certainly when we were working on it, it's in the other room behind me, funnily enough, which is why I just pointed to that. Shout out to the camera again for today. Maybe it's taking me a little bit to get used to. But it was one of the exercises we went through there was really going through that process, something that you I remember you outlaid so simply, and then there are words behind it, but it is those, a couple of years worth of experience in order to create that framework to help people get there, which is sort of what you largely embark on now through Yellow Donkey. Can you tell us, I'm not sure if I know the origin story of Yellow Donkey. I think I've been teased it a few times, but today I'm keen to find out the whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, it was like I mentioned earlier, it was literally, it's like a talisman, a lucky project name. So it was never meant to be my company, but I've just been so busy putting together, I'm originally a brand strategist, so it's terrible, right? That I should be working on my own stuff first.
Well, it's like they say, the builder's house is never finished.
100%, right?
No, I apologize. I know you did talk about this before. My brain is a little slow, and it's just taking a little while to join the dots together.
That's okay. Like if my mother listens to this, the first thing she's going to say is, you speak very quickly. You need to slow down. So there you are, Andy.
Maybe people can listen to this on 0.75 speed.
I know, exactly.
Most people listen to a podcast in 1.2 anyway.
Yeah,
I do.
I'm 1.2 or 1.5, depends on who's talking.
Yeah, I'm 1.2 generally.
Yeah.
I do like to take in what people are saying. But
we've
all got it.
And you can comprehend words a lot quicker, when you're listening than you can when you speak, for example. So
I'll remind her of that.
Yeah,
please.
Let's call up.
Yeah, let's
exactly.
put her on the speaker now. One thing, when I hear you speak about you're packing in 20-something years of career in a few minutes there. But one of the things that really strikes me is digital and talking about money coming from everywhere. So that commercial perspective, but at the heart of everything, you are always so people-centered and so people-centric.
Yeah.
And I don't know that that's everyone's balance. Like I feel sometimes people are either one side or the other, but you've just got that beautiful mishmash of the two, which is so rare and so, I think, so important.
I wish it wasn't.
I wish it wasn't too.
It's funny, we talk about in our family business, it's the people that make the difference. And that saying has come from, how we are as people. It's a very genuine value. And it's still completely relevant. If I've done anything, I've done it with having amazing people around me I'm really comfortable with. And I suggest this for everybody, is get comfortable with surrounding yourself by people that are better at things than you are. And I don't know where I got that muscle from. I do. It's probably like families, like, I don't know everything, right? But together we can figure it out, you know? And I think valuing that is really, really critical. You'll get there faster. You'll get there more joyfully as well. And also, and I can understand this from many business owners' perspectives, people take time. It can be a lot. It can be a handful. So you've just got to be really mindful about and intentional around that people management piece and where you're placing people and where their capabilities are best placed. And making sure that expectations are really clear around that. And so, doing a lot of work this year around people and processes, because you need to, and now more than ever, right? Inferring or inference is out the window, because people are working remotely or in a hybrid manner. You're not picking up that sort of unspoken learning, that water cooler learning, etc. You've got to be more intentional. And you've got to be more prescriptive with your expectations and your processes. So I'm doing a lot. I mean, I haven't done a lot of process running for a long time, because typically I have big teams around me. But now that I'm out on my own, right, I do everything. And I do it because I think it's so critical, because, if you're very clear about your expectations and frameworks, people then can follow that, but they can then have room to bring themselves and bring the higher level thinking, because they've got the basic framework right, that sort of drumbeat of a business that needs to be delivered every day, day in, day out. And then they get to bring them and at the same time can bring themselves.
Yeah, it's so true. There's been a lot of conversation I've been a part of recently around the more frameworks we have, the more freedom it actually gives.
100%,
Whereas I think sometimes people see that it restricts it. It's like, no, it gives you the freedom.
It's funny, because I've worked in sort of creative industries a lot in my life, just because of the nature of working with brands and products, and sort of in branding agencies and marketing and advertising agencies. My sort of the creativity I work in is very whole brained. So it's like combining that science with creativity, or that I always think of it as math and magic, you know, essentially. And so it's a very specific kind of creativity. And, you know, people often think, as you're saying, I think, is that creativity is like, oh, I just like this blank sheet of paper. But actually people can be a lot more creative within a framework, because they need to know the boundaries of whatever it is in life. One needs to know that, you know, and, you know, the sort of creativity I do is not fine art. You know, it is for a commercial purpose, and making sure that you're bringing that thinking into it, but giving your creatives, and creatives isn't just like, you know, graphic artist creatives. It's like, I'm a strategist by trade, and the creativity in that is intense and insane. And there's a lot of original thinking that goes in there. But like, I could be originally thinking all I like, but if I'm not actually delivering on an outcome, you know, that's, you know, why am I there? Type of thing.
It only goes so
I
far.
get really specific around that with people. So yeah, I mean, I think you can be exactly what you say, more creative and also more innovative. Because, you know, when people come into brainstorms, that word brainstorm cracks me up. I kind of like it, but you know, it sort of feels very old fashioned now, right? And it's like you can think whatever you like and you can throw it up on a board, and I want to absolutely see that. But very quickly, I want to get to synthesizing that into themes, and then understanding the impact of what those themes of what we've learned are going to have on whatever objective it is that we're brainstorming for. And I think getting there quite quickly is important in business, because also the pace of business and the pace of delivery has increased. So you need this combination of, you know, sort of stamina, and delivery, you know, and creativity at the same time. So you've got to be quite quick at doing these things, and giving people frameworks to be able to operate within helps them get there faster and get an outcome and the satisfaction of an outcome. Yeah, like it feels good to tick something off, you know. I mean, we're all human. Like that sort of feeling of completion is important.
Yeah, that dopamine hit when you get
really
it done.
It really is. Yeah, is that what it is? Absolutely. Yeah. Like, give me more of that. And that dopamine hit is what helps people get better, but it also helps them be sticky to you, your brand, your business, which is important. You know, getting back to people. But yeah, I mean, what I do is very much about, it's where people, business, and tech really intersect. And they really intersect. They're like, it's a Venn diagram, right?
Yes.
And
and in that little overlap, Stephanie White.
Stephanie White, exactly. But also that little overlap is where your optimization is, your monetization is, and importantly, your margin is. You know, like, you know, so margin is so important, and it's often not talked about. First, we talk about revenue, top line revenue. We talk about costs. But talking about was sort of like, for every dollar I put out of there, what am I keeping? What's my margin? What's my cost to serve? That sort of thinking is really important. And that sort of strategizing around that and understanding that data is a little bit like a framework. Once you've got those anchors, you can then start being really creative around how to solve for it, how to grow it, how to actually contain it, whatever it is that you need to do. It's a lot of fun, but it all boils down to making tills ring. Are the tills ringing? You know, someone was talking to me last night, and they go, it was something that came up about, like, what do you like most? And I said, I really like the sound of tills ringing.
Which it's old school. It's so old school, sound, right? But I could hear it in my head. I mean?
And it's probably not even relevant to, you know, a cohort of a certain age anymore. So
your kids will be like, well, your kids actually probably wouldn't know exactly what that means, but their friends may say,
it'd be a good one for an alarm on a phone, or a
ringtone,
or a podcast kind of interjunction between different sections.
But it's like, if you've got a Shopify site as a business owner, it has a ding.
It's
so whatever. And I'm sure you can turn it off, but you know,
but it's like old school too.
Yeah, totally. Love that.
Yeah, and so, but yeah, no, I mean, that sort of thing is like, it's for my clients. It's just such a joy to see that happen. And it's really hard work to get there. Like when you're in that first phase of trying to sort it out, it's kind of very messy and
laborious.
Kind of laborious, but I really work on, I'm very quick to identify quick wins really fast, because I think all business people and teams, we're just humans. We need some quick wins. So I tend to get there quite quickly on quick wins, and every business has them. Of like, you know, sort of what can we optimize now? What can we implement now that could really make a difference to your business tomorrow? You know, because I think that, you know, consultants, you know, there's a lot of chat, you know, it's a very long timeline. It's like, yeah, but we're in business. It's a going concern. We need to be, you know,
we need to make payroll.
We need to make payroll. Exactly. And, you know, I think I think I've been in their shoes, it's sort of, I've had my own businesses. I've had to walk away from my own businesses, and there's been a lot of failing forward for me. And it's, I totally get it. I work with people like it's my own, which I don't know whether that's good or bad. I'm probably over servicing, but I've got only one speed. So, I've tried to maybe just try a little less harder, but I just,
try and give less.
I just don't have it in me. And it's funny. I don't. I'm sure there is someone far smarter than me out there that can sort of, mitigate their speed, but I'm like just all in or all in.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's so funny, isn't it? The superpowers that we have. And then sometimes people will go, oh, do this or do that. But that's actually your superpower.
Yeah, I guess. It's lucky I'm born with quite a good energy, as it were. So, and I think that I'm perfectly born for sort of transformation work because it is intense. The triage is real, people's pants on fire, very real. I don't know. That's my favorite part. I mean, like, not my favorite part, but that's when I usually go into a business, and it's, I think if it's just BAU, is it just business as usual? That's where I get people to. But once I'm there, my job is done.
Maybe
I need to
BAU
do myself out of a job.
Boring and unfulfilling.
Potentially. I don't know.
For you, I think you want some
That's
people
really
actually live for BAU. But
no, most people do.
Yeah.
Most humans
but I
like
think
that. And that's
BAU,
good because the BAU is like, the day in, day out. That's what's paying your payroll. It's paying the mortgage. It's like getting it done. And that's important too. So, and also the majority of humans do like stability, and the majority of humans do not like change and innovation and going into transformation workshops and that, like a TO, which is a transformation office, which is a sort of a place in an organization. If you're doing a big enterprise, transformation is a really scary place for some people, and for other people, they can't wait to go because they feel like that's where the fun is. And that's a beautiful thing about humans, right? There's everybody's got a gift to bring to the table. It's just a matter of finding what that is and getting them to the right table.
Yes.
And it may not be yours. And I've definitely been with teams and companies where that person's gift isn't right for the table that I've set right now. And I've, worked with them to find the table that is, and that's important too. So
I love the language you've just used with that too. And it's the courage, actually, to see it, to give someone the ability for them to see it and then to do something about it.
It is crazy because having those, and it's kind of like that influencing without power laterally, when you're growing a team and you can see someone who's really reached that point, where a peak performance team may not be for them, but they're still great and they've got their thing, and having that conversation with them is tough. They're good people. Most people are good people, doing the best they can with what they've got. And it just may not be the right spot for them.
Yeah.
So it's not they're bad. I think as humans, we go to villainizing people quite quickly. Oh, they're bad, or they're crap at their job or whatever. Well, really, as the leader, I always look at who's like not the bullet hole, but who's pulling the trigger. It's like, well, hang on, let's get thoughtful about this. So I think that's something to say if that's clear. But you talked about values earlier, and I think,
Sorry.
No, you're fine.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Can we edit?
Excuse
me.
me.
We edit out your
I think so. I hope so. Sorry. My apology. We talked about values earlier.
And when I first met you guys, I laughed because a lot of your values are mine, and one that really stood out was curiosity. And sort of, people will say, I remember when I was on this, crazy odyssey of 25 years that people go, oh, they kind of, why are you doing that? Or like, curiosity killed the cat. I'm going, well, it took this cat to Paris, London, New York, and, LA and San Francisco and Columbus, Ohio, oddly enough.
Yes.
And
yes, you often,
that's
you've told us
curiosity.
that, but like not everyone goes to Columbus, Ohio on the Paris, London, New York, LA, San Fran.
On the round the world ticket.
Yeah.
I know. But that was
That was
another
a
really
HQ
amazing.
there.
It was a headquarters. So Columbus, Ohio, for everybody that's listening, it sounds weird, but that's where Victoria's Secret is headquartered, Abercrombie and Fitch. A lot of the big farmers, Abbott Pharmaceutical is there, big data companies, and
Just
also
different tax there or something. Is that why?
no, it's no, that's definitely not a tax decision.
Ohio.
I know. So a lot of it was started by a guy called Les Wexner, who started Victoria's Secret, and he was a Columbus boy and was in New York, and he just sort of wanted to come home, and he worked out how he could, attract executives to Columbus, and he did that by offering land and house packages.
Wow.
And putting on a couple of company jets. So New York's an hour and 45 away, which is easy, but the living is fantastic. It costs like $1 for a mansion, which was coming from LA. We were just like, yeah, what? I sent my husband there and I said, can you just go press on them? Because I think they're just stage sets. I can believe
Are they
it.
real?
But the lifestyle's great. The people are wonderful. It's just like an American movie. Actually, it kind of like freaked me out. You feel like you're in Stepford. But a great experience. It's a cut and sew capital of America. It's a huge farming around there as well. So it was a great lesson for me. Judge not. But I went there to do a role as a CMO, so a chief marketing officer and strategist advisor to a CEO who had a hypergrowth company at the time. And the reason I said yes is I'd never worked with hypergrowth before. I'm like, oh, okay. So curiosity again, wonder what that's like, and so that was a great experience. My kids loved it. It was really great. It was like classic Americana. And, it was beautiful.
Do they miss that now?
They do. It's the place of all the places we've lived in that they talk about the most. Yeah, they really do. They just love it. And Idaho, we used to go to Idaho a lot because my best friend lived in a little mountain village up there, and it was just idyllic as well. So there's a lot of amazing, experiences and a lot of joy and just blessings. I mean, but I think it all, sort of getting back to values around curiosity, but also another value of mine is just working hard. You get there, and I don't think I've taken one job because they've all been quite big. You look up, we were talking earlier, I look back on my resume, it looks like I made it up. And I'm going, really? That's what you did? Anyway, but when I think about it, I don't think I took one job where I thought, yeah, I've got this. I think every job was like, holy shit, how am I going to do this?
Yeah.
But what I was very good with showing up and playing full out and working hard and figuring it out and asking questions. I learn't very early on that it was okay to put up my hand and say, I don't know. And that is that became, because I was like for years, I think through my 20s, I felt like that I was dumb or something. I couldn't say that. And I had, this is another tip for people is I had amazing mentors around me, like people, and no one knows me from Ned, right? I've got off the boat or the plane in Paris and thought I could speak French. Absolutely. Like, it's so funny. It's one of those languages you realize how much you don't know. Anyway, and then the same with London. I didn't go to London with friends and backpacking, all that. I went there for a job. So you just have to make it work. I had to work out how to get a flat and pay rent, which is really bloody expensive in the town. And Paris is so much cheaper. Anyway, but I, along the way, ended up having, some amazing mentors. I had a much older gentleman who he was fantastic at just saying every word was a pearl. And he must have noticed this about me. And it essentially came from imposter syndrome. He goes, it's okay to say you don't know. And I want you to notice next time who would say that in a room. And it was often like the CEO or the COO, they'd be asking a question saying, well, I don't understand that. Can you explain it to me? I thought, I could never say that. Was it? And so things like that gave me confidence. He gave me the confidence to ask for, to be paid properly. It's okay to ask for that, I mean, that's a courageous conversation,
isn't it?
I think from no matter how old you get, I hear that a lot from people, how to ask for what I'm worth. That was
how
amazing.
do you know what you're worth? How do you determine what that number is?
Oh, he told me.
Yeah. Oh, he told you what you're worth. And I guess going forward,
knew.
is it just knowing what's in the market or what other?
Oh, yeah. It's a really good question, actually. No, it is definitely benchmarking what's out there and not doing it in a transactional way where you feel like you're being ripped off, right? I think that's a negative way to go into it. I was actually in that particular instance was starting a role that didn't exist. It was a brand director role, which back then didn't exist in media companies. And I didn't know what one got paid. And they weren't, this is like the late 90s and they weren't a thing. Like brands, people were still getting their head around brands. And I was obsessed with them I remember being like about 12 and reading American business books. I'm such a nerd. And I would read about people like Lee Iacocca. He was at Ford and he brought the Mustang to market. I would read all of hilarious. And they would talk about brands and, the whole Coke story and all that sort of thing. So I was like oddly qualified. And so I didn't know what to benchmark myself against. And then I came up with a number and I checked it and I felt like a lot and he was like, no, go ask for what you want. No one else can do this. And, you've put some thought into it. And I asked and they said yes. And my sort of theory, okay, this is my big tip, is ask. They can only say no. No is not going to kill you.
Yes.
No is not going to kill you. And I don't know where I learned that. I learned that really early on.
It probably served you pretty well.
It's really served. This is the daggy thing that happened in my family. Okay, listeners, you're going to just like really think I'm a dag. We're total dags. So a part of our education was we all had to do a Dale Carnegie course. It wasn't an option. And which was how to win friends and influence people. It was so Dale Carnegie got this. It's a really great sales system essentially, and it still holds water today, completely. So we all had to do this, no matter what, And I think I might have learned it there actually. I think that's where it came from.
Isn't it amazing, those things that you do? And there's like one or two or multiple pearls of wisdom that didn't stick with you.
They just stick
and
with
they
you,
just form.
Yeah.
Stay
and you
with
get
you through
wisdom.
your life.
And it's a little bit like what you guys do, right? So you teach capabilities and skills to people, but it's just an idea. It's a little bit like I do. It's like if I can teach capabilities and companies how to do things and brands how to be different or better, right? But if they don't implement it and practice it and try it and, hone it and make it their own, it's not valuable.
No.
So you're not going to get the value out of my work or your work unless you go back and you implement it and you try it on for size.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I really focus on with the way I work with clients is most consultants don't do the implementation, but I stay in the trenches helping them implement, essentially practice
the execution
so they can optimize and monetize. And through that practice, you will essentially get the golden ticket, which is failing forward. So because you put it out there and some bits will work and some bits won't, and then you've got to hone it. But through that process, you're honing your own skill and your team's skills and your company's skill, and you're learning what the right fit is for you. For that particular situation or for your customer, whatever the outcome you're looking for is. And I think that's really, for me, that's really critical. And it's something I don't see happen a lot, whereas I got to get in there and implement with you. I just got to see, this is all a great idea. I'm pretty sure it'll work, but it's not all going to work. Let's go and find. And do it in sprints. You don't have to do it forever. Give your teams a 2-week sprint, which is a defined period of time to test a single thing out and test it properly.
Yeah.
And
is it working?
Did it work? How are you feeling? Yeah. And
do
a retrospective and go, what worked? What didn't work? What are we going to move forward with? What are we going to leave behind? So that kind of like building that sort of muscle in companies and in people's behavior is really important. And it doesn't happen enough because we're also hellishly into delivery and operational, stuff, but just taking that moment to be able to do that. And that's where I guess I come in because I'm like I run alongside the team. And so they can still be BAU, building capabilities, working with them to come up with whatever the solution is, then implementing it, being in the trenches, then pulling back out, running alongside that type of cadence. And it works. It really does.
Yeah.
Yeah. Lots of fun.
So great. So great.
How do you build a famous brand, do you think, in your view?
God, that's a big bloody question, Andy.
You got to pay for that answer, Andy.
You got to pay for that. But
this is as much as for my education as it is for some people who will listeners as well.
It's funny. I don't know if you essentially build brands. I think you build fans, and they build brands. I think that's how it happens. They're the practical elements of your offer. Like, have you got something that people want at the price they want it, where they want it, how they want it? Do you know what I mean? Have you got something? And then, that's your baseboard. And then it's a case of like, how are we building fans? And then the fans build the brand. So
remember I talked about the raving fans.
Raving fans.
Raving fan.
Yeah.
We even
Which
had
is
that. We
Gladwell,
had that on our
Who?
website.
Is it Malcolm Gladwell or one of them?
Yes.
One of my great
Someone else.
teachers who I can never remember. It's so rude. All the great teachers out there and the podcasters out there who teach us. But yeah, building raving fans is really important.
Ken Blanchard? No. I think it might
it's
be.
Seth Godin.
Is it?
I think it is.
Okay,
Yeah. That great books, a real basic. This is marketing. I think it's called. It's real. I'm such a marketer. So yeah. Building fans is really important, and I think you do that by winning hearts and minds. It's an emotional game. And that's how people connect. And so that we think about, the difference between a brand and a product is emotional connection, and building that emotional connection with a group of people who then build a group of people, because it's a little bit like I talked earlier about, building magazine titles into brand platforms. And it's like understanding those fans, that discrete audience that follow Elle magazine or him, FHM, for him magazine, and why they do it is what builds the brand. And understanding that why. We're getting into all the theorists now. But it all rings true, right?
Yes.
And I think I said to you earlier, I feel like I've had enough time in market now, enough age and stage where that sort of gathering of experience and information is proving to be really helpful for people. I can get there faster. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't mean I'm better. I can just get there faster. And I always know someone who is better. It's one thing or the other, but you know what I mean? It's just like, understanding that wisdom and then putting it into practice.
Yes.
It's not all about podcasts and TED Talks. Do you know what I mean? That I think, and you often see, you can see people who've been raised on that, and that's great. But it's like, where does the rubber hit the road? Where does the implementation? Where are your hands getting dirty? Where are you having to actually write the payroll check?
Yeah,
and
yeah.
You know what I mean? There's a big
walk the walk
thing, and I don't know how to do it any other way. I'm such a hands-on learner, doer, in the trenches, very muddy, very messy, So not a lot of elegance, but definitely a lot of results, I think one would say.
I think you're elegant, but I know exactly what you mean in that way. Absolutely. You mentioned before around imposter syndrome and failing forward. I guess how do you recover from, said challenge, either personally or professionally? What are the steps you have gone through to bounce back or bounce forward?
Yeah, no, it's a really good question. God, imposter syndrome plagued me because I was often very young for my roles, and I was blonde and female, a little female, and so as I say, I've grown into myself, I think. I don't have that party trick anymore. I just, I think I was working with mentors. And then I did start working with a life coach at around my sort of turning the 30s, just about that much. Because I had my first MD role in my early 30s. So I really needed that personal development and evolution to get there, because that sort of heightened leadership, as you know thyself, is, I always say to people, is the theme. You really need, I think you need to be as an effective leader is to really understand yourself and the energy you bring to the room, you bring to any room, and that you're responsible for that.
Yes.
And it's a real discipline. So it's outside help, I guess, is the way. So with I did a couple of sort of goes at sort of coaching stages with different things, and I tend to, if I'm having a big change, we'll go into a period of one-on-one coaching to just, like any change management process, make sure I'm learning through it and I've got support and being able to ask those questions. So there were a couple of key points in those sort of late 20s, early 30s, and then going into coming out of the 30s as well, and getting those that sort of feedback of how you're showing up.
Yes.
And also getting some confidence around, well, what is the worst case scenario? What if you get found out? Found out what? But that's the thing with imposter syndrome. What if you get found out? What are they going to find out? And sort of actually going through methodically, well, they're going to find out this, and they'll find out that, and they'll find out this. Well, actually, that's fine. You
Yeah,
know?
what's the worst that can happen
What's the
there?
worst that can happen?
Yeah.
So that whole working the worst case scenario is just a great mechanic generally in life as
I like
as
that
in
too.
when you're just sort of going, what's the worst thing that's going to happen? You know, I'm going to lose a client and I'm not going to have, you know, income coming in. So what do I do now? You know, like what next type of thing. Or I'm going to this, you know, business looks like it's going to go down the gurgler. Okay, so what have we got? What can we salvage? And whatever it is, but definitely follow the process and follow it right through and just understand. Like I usually get to, I'm a bag lady on the street, right? Which in America without, you know, a welfare safety net is a real possibility. But actually because
I shouldn't laugh like that actually, you know, women in homelessness at the moment. So it's not a laughing matter, but I see what you get to that end. Yeah.
And the other little thing that someone taught me is I must have been having a big period of self-doubt, and they got me to reread my resume, like that I'd actually done stuff.
Yes.
Not like it is now, but you know, back then you'd still done stuff. You've got jobs. You've been successful. You've got more jobs. You know, so actually, what the evidence is showing you, what the data is showing you, is you'll get another job. Yeah. You know, or you can do this. You have these skills, right? That are transferable.
Yeah,
so
that's a great practical thing.
Staying out of your head is really important with imposter syndrome because it's all made up anyway. The imposter syndrome is just like, it's basically a thing we make up in our head, right? And we choose to do. Here's my final one on imposter syndrome, which actually really helped me. And I think about, I've got two. One is someone said to me, everybody around that boardroom table is thinking that they're going to get found out. That's a good one.
Yes.
You know, and I was like, really? And absolutely. It was a much older sort of board chair type who'd been around. He went, yes, of course they do. And I'm going, great. Good to know.
Not just me.
And then in the very early days, I think a lot of us can feel a bit like we're going in there and the boss or the board or whatever's going to parent you, you know. And there's this sort of concept of behavior called transactional analysis. So we all have these roles in transactional analysis, and we're either a parent, an adult, or a child, and we roll between these roles depending on the situation. So, you know, and organizations tend to parent, you know, and bosses tend to go into that parent role. But if you keep it an adult, they will get to adult very quickly. And then you have these adult to adult conversations, and that's where you want to be, or they'll child you. I always suffered think they're childing that person or whatever. I said, I don't know. I read that book very early on. It's called Lateral Thinking. And it's just a really good framework. We talk about frameworks a lot. Yeah. It's a really good framework to think when you can see people's behavior, like the games that people play and the way people behave. But importantly, in this particular conversation around imposter syndromes, how are you behaving? How are you showing up?
Yes.
And sort of really holding that space of adult to adult. And so I would often go into board meetings and being like, adult to adult to adult. I would literally say that to myself. Isn't that daggy? But I did. And, you know, it's for many years, you know.
Yeah.
And it's really helpful. So I hope there's some good tips there, because they are genuinely worked for me and continue to work for me. You know, you never get over feeling like, oh God, I'm going to pull this off. Yeah. You know, or get found. You just don't. And that's good, I reckon. Keep you on your toes.
Enough that you get a little bit nervous and that you've got that adrenaline that's like, okay, let's go, let's prepare properly, because I'm not
healthy.
It's healthy until it becomes unhealthy. And so then it's having the strategy to bring it back to that healthy.
Yeah. Mum was always great like that. She was a great public speaker, and she would say, you know, those sort of nerves, they're good, channel it. That's good. It means you care.
Yes. Yes.
And I think that's really, if you go there, it's like, I've got a message to deliver, or, you know.
The minute you stop getting those nerves, I think if you're speaking or presenting or whatever it is or leading, then, you've lost touch a little.
Well, you're on autopilot and people can sense that. You've lost your authenticity, and then now you're wasting my time.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it's like being talked to or talked at. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, insert canned response here.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's like, all right, okay. Which is, you know, isn't how I roll. So.
Yeah. So good.
How are we doing?
We're doing great. We might have time for one last question, if that's okay. I feel like this is you are an encyclopedia of life, and I feel like we kind of get to kind of put my hands in it every time and then kind of pull it back out again. Oh, there's some more there to go and work on. And this episode, I'm excited to listen back to, because I think that there's going to be a lot there, and we'd love to have you back on the podcast again.
Oh my gosh, it's such a delight.
Because I feel like we just literally dipped our toes into the water. So thank you. What is the kindest thing that someone's done for you?
Oh gosh, how do you come up with one? I mean,
Yeah,
people
that's
are
tricky.
so gorgeous. I think the kindest, it's very, one of the kindest things anybody ever does or has done for me is believe in me. Yeah, that's really special. Just believed in me. That sort of, unconditional belief.
Yeah.
That gives you wings, and it's life force, So if you can give that to someone, I sort of think it's so important that you give back what you've been freely given, which is why building teams and pouring into people is really important, because people did it for me. That's how I know how to do it. That's how I know to do anything. I've had role models that show me stuff, right? And then you practice it and make it your own. And I think that belief is really special.
Yeah. When you just said that, I was looking straight at you, and I kind of had the picture of you stepping off the plane in Paris as a 20-year-old spring chicken, kind of ready to take on the world. And I sort of see that still, that I want to say like innocence and that sort of beauty from a 20-year-old in now a slightly older body, maybe, but it's kind of, I think you still have that mindset. You had it then and you have it now, and that's that sort of head first. I'm all in. I've tried the balance thing. It's kind of a dirty word, and now it's just like, we'll just plunge it and see where we go. So, and yeah, wow, what a gift. Thank you. Thank you for giving to us and giving to the listeners of the Lead with Courage podcast as well.
Thank you for having me, guys. It's been such a pleasure. It's a pleasure to spend time with you. I was so excited to see you both today. It's such a delight.
Likewise.
To be in the room with your energy always fills me up. So thank you.
Yeah, it is. It's like you stopping. It's like you stopping at the fuel station. I think whenever you get to hang out with Stephanie White.
Oh yeah, you just fill up my tank.
Yeah,
absolutely.
It's kind of be good now for another 2 weeks.
I'm just like sitting here. I was reflecting before, going, I haven't said much in this one, because I think my mouth. Well, we've got a video now. I can watch it back. I think my mouth was just open and just smiling and nodding at you. Yeah. And at one point, I'm like, have I even use my body language anywhere near Andy? Nah, just keep listening to Steph.
No,
sorry, Andy. Sorry, Andy.
None taken. Happy to be a wallflower for this one. It's good.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Steph.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks for joining us on the Lead with Courage podcast. We illuminate leadership, and it's our mission to inspire and grow the leaders of today to create a better tomorrow. We hope and trust that this episode has given you some insights and joy to empower you to live your biggest, best life. If you did enjoy the episode, we'd be so grateful for you to rate and share wherever you listen to this podcast. And until next time, go and lead with courage. Illuminate Leadership is not a licensed mental health service or a substitute for professional mental health advice, treatment, or assessment. Any conversation in this podcast is general in nature, and if you're struggling, please see a healthcare professional or call Lifeline on 131114.